Hello readers, so the sign of the beaver, we're going to be continuing with chapter 14, and this video will be 15 as well because chapter 14 is so short, and then I will review the activity that's in the novel study packet. Chapter 14. Robinson Crusoe had come to an end. Matt had skipped more than half of it, choosing only the pages where there was plenty of action. Now he was sorry it had not lasted longer. Aten also seemed disappointed. Too bad, he commented, copying one of Matt's frequent remarks. I tell story to brothers. Every night I tell more story, they like. Delighted, Matt tried to picture the Indians sitting around the campfire at night listening to Aten tell the story of Robinson Crusoe. He would give a good deal to hear Aten's version of it. Now suddenly he had an inspiration. If they want more stories, I have lots of them, he exclaimed. He took his father's Bible from the shelf. Why hadn't he thought of this before? Why, there was Samson, David and Goliath, Joseph and his coat of many colors. They're even better than Robinson Crusoe, he promised. It really was true. The ancient Bible stories were filled with adventure. They were told straight out in simple language, and they didn't need skipping. He began with the story of Noah, how God warned Noah that a great flood was coming, how Noah built the ark and took inside his family and 2 of every kind of animal, how they all lived in the ark safely while it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, how Noah sent a dove out 3 times, and when it came back the 3rd time with a twig of olive in its beak, Noah knew that the flood was over. Here Matt looked up to see the grin on Aten's face. Beaver people tell story like that, he said. Very old story. You want me tell? Matt waited curiously. Very long time, Aten began, scowling as he tried to translate from his own tongue. Before animal was great rain. Water came over all the land. One Indian go to very high hill, climb very high tree. Rain many days. Water come up to the feet of Indian, but no more. Gulskaby bring 3 ducks to Indian. One day he let 1 duck go, and fly away and not come back. The other day he let the other duck go, not come back. Then last duck come back with mud in mouth. Indian no water go down. When water all gone, he come down from tree. He make grass, make bird and animal, make man and beaver. Man and beaver make all other Indians. Golly, said Matt, it's almost like the Bible story. Where did the Indians get it? Aten shrugged. Very old story. Indians take long time to tell. I not know white man's words. You told it fine, but who was whatever you called him? Gulskaby, mighty hunter, come from north, very strong. He made wind blow, make thunder. He make all animal, make Indian. Matt was puzzled. He had heard that the Indians worshipped the Great Spirit. The Gulskaby did not sound like a great spirit. He sounded more like one of the heroes in the old folk tales his mother had told him when he was a child. He decided it would be impolite to ask more. He wondered if the Indians had many stories like that. How could it be that here in the forest they had learned about the flood? Chapter 15. On the day of their greatest adventure, Aten had come without his dog, so there was no warning. Matt was in a fine spirit that day because he had managed by a magnificent stroke of luck to hit a rabbit with his bow and arrow. It was the first time it had happened, and it was more the rabbit's doing than his own. The silly creature had just sat down and let him take careful aim. All the same, he was pleased with himself, and even more pleased that Aten had been there to see it. When the boys decided to visit the beaver dam again, Matt was unwilling to leave the rabbit behind in case some thieving animal should discover it. He was walking behind Aten, swinging the rabbit carelessly by his ears, as Aten always did. When the Indian suddenly halted, his whole body tensed. Matt could see nothing unusual, and he had opened his mouth to speak when Aten silenced him with a jerk of his hand. Then he heard the sound of the underbrush ahead, not a rustle like a grouse or a snake, not a trapped animal. This was the stirring of something moving slowly and heavily. Boy, the author does a great job of building up some tension. He felt a cold prickle in his stomach. He stood beside a 10, his own muscle tightened, scarcely breathing. A low bush bent sideways. Through the leaves, a brown head thrust itself, bigger than that of a dog, and shaggier. It was a small bear cub. Matt could see the little eyes peering at him curiously, the brown nose wrinkled at the strange smell of a human boy. The little animal looked so comical that Matt almost laughed out loud. "St!" a 10 warned under his breath. There was a crashing of bush and a low snarling growl. An immense paw reached through the thicket and tumbled the cub over and out of sight. In its place loomed a huge brown shape. Bristling through the leaves was the head 3 times as big as the cub's. No curiosity in those small eyes, only an angry reddish gleam. Somehow, Matt had the sense not to run. He stood frozen in the path. A bear could overtake a running man in a few bounds. And this one was only 2 bounds away. The bear's head moved slowly from side to side. Its heavy body brushed aside the branches as though they were cobwebs. It swayed, shifting its weight from one foot to the other. Slowly it raised on its hind legs. Matt could see the wicked, curving claws. Matt would never know why he acted as he did. He could not remember thinking at all, only staring with numb horror at the creature about to charge. Somehow he did move. He swung his dead rabbit by its ears and hurled it straight at the bear's head. The tiny body struck the bear squarely in its nose. With the jerk of her head, the bear shook it off as though it were a buzzing mosquito. The rabbit flopped uselessly to the ground. The bear did not even bother to look down at it. She had been distracted for only an instant, but in that instant, something flashed through the air. There was a sharp twang and the dull thud of a blow. Just between the eyes of the bear, the shaft of 10's arrow quivered. As the waving forepaw began to lower, a second arrow struck just below the bear's shoulder. The great head shuddered and sank towards the ground. With a wild yell, a 10 sprang forward and thrust his knife deep just behind the first arrow. Still scarcely aware that he moved at all, Matt leapt after him, jerking his own knife from his belt, and sank it into the brown fur. His blow had been misplaced, but it was not needed. The bear's sides were heaving. The boys stood watching, and in a few moments it lay still. Matt stared down the creature in horror. The fearsome yellow teeth were still barred and snarl. Saliva and blood dripped down from the open jaw. The little eyes that had glittered so savagely were filmed over. The long, sharp claws hung powerless, clotted with pawed-up earth. Now that there was nothing to fear, Matt felt his knees shaking. He hoped that a 10 would not notice, and he managed a wide grin to hide his trembling. But a 10 did not grin back. He stood over the bear, and he began to speak slowly and solemnly in his own tongue. He spoke for some time. "What were you saying?" Matt demanded when the speaking was over. "I tell bear I did not want to kill him," a 10 answered. "Indian not kill she-bear with cub. I tell bear we did not come here to hunt, but it might have killed us both. Maybe I ask bear to forgive that I must kill." "Well, I'm mighty thankful you did," Matt said stoutly. He was about to say that he had never been so scared in his life, but he thought better of it. A 10 looked at him, and his solemnness suddenly dissolved in a grin. "You move quick," he said, "like Indian." Matt felt his cheeks turn red. "You killed him," he said honestly, yet he knew that he had a part. He had given a 10 just that instant in which to notch his arrow. A 10 nudged the bear with his toe. "Small," he said, "just same fat. Good for eat." Small? That monstrous creature, it certainly was too big for 2 boys to carry. It appeared that a 10 had no intention of trying. "Belong squar now," he said. "I go tell." "You mean a squar is going to carry that heavy thing?" "Cut up meat, then carry. Squaw work," a 10 answered. It was plain that he had done the man's work and was finished with it. The cub, Matt remembered now, It was nowhere in sight. A 10 shook his head. Let cub go, he said. When Sigwan come again, him plenty big to eat. Take rabbit, a 10 reminded him. So the interesting thing is twice a 10 has said squaw. I'm pronouncing it as squaw. And it must be women's work. That must be the females of the group, or just a female. Matt looked with distance at the rabbit. Almost covered by the bear's heavy paw, the fur matted and bloody. He would rather have not touched it, but obediently he pulled it out. It was his dinner after all, and he knew that in a 10's world, everything that was killed must be used. The Indians did not kill for sport. When a 10 had disappeared into the forest, Matt stood looking down at the first bear he had ever seen. He felt resentful. A 10 had killed the bear, of course. It was his by right, but Matt would have liked just a small share of that meat, or even just one of those big claws to show his father. Then he remembered the Indian boy's tribute. He had moved fast, like an Indian. That would have to be share enough. Okay. That's good. The boys, what are your thoughts on this chapter? You hear me reflect after every chapter, so now you take a moment. What sticks out the most to you? Is there any writer's craft in the chapter? Any of the author's writing that stuck out to you? Feel free to go back and look. Did Matt and a 10 have a good interaction in this chapter, you think? Okay, so ask yourself questions all along the way. Okay, so there's no questions for chapters 11 through 15. Okay, but it's more of maybe a social studies connection. It says, as you read The Sign of the Beaver, you will notice many differences between the ways of the white people and the ways of the Native Americans. However, you will find similarities between the two types of people as well. Use the chart on this page to record both differences and similarities that are described in the story. Similarities between the ways of the white people and Native American. And then again, it says down here, similarities between the ways of the white and Native American people. I think that was just a typo in the booklet. So just change that second similarities and just write differences. Okay, and as you can tell, the skill we're working on is compare and contrast, right? Typically we see compare and contrast using a Venn diagram, right? Things that are different, things that are different, things that are the same, but you can use a simple T-chart like this as well. Okay, so how are they the same? So you're gonna write on both sides things that are the same and things that are different. Okay, so would you say that white people, that they both hunt animals? And I'm writing them between the two because they both hunt the animals, right? So to me, a similarity is that they hunt animals to eat. Okay, but a difference to me, white people can hunt just for fur, right? That can be something that's different. Okay, so you go through the chapters and you decide and fill in some information. There's really no wrong answers. It's just getting used to a page like this is just forcing you to really think about the different groups of people. One thing about character analysis is that idea of fast, right? I'm going to pull up that chart just one more time. Okay, F-A-S-T. We have feelings, kind of like a heart there, actions pointing to the hands, sayings pointing to the mouth, thoughts pointing to your head or to your brain. Okay, so this is just getting you to look at the fast of the characters. Okay, and then we will continue on with chapter 16, and I believe we have just about 9 chapters left then.